Okay, you should be able to see me now. I think that's working. If not, let me know. How's the audio? The signs are that it's going pretty well. But if not, then let me know and I'll change it. Okay, so welcome to first live stream on this channel. Welcome to how to use PureBasic, how to program in PureBasic. It's a language not many people have heard of, but it's very easy to use. It has very basic syntax, if you'll excuse the coding joke, and it has some really quite powerful features that everybody could use, whether you're a beginner, whether you've been in the game for 20 or 25 years. There's something there for everybody. So I think it's a really good language that people should actually know about, and hopefully in this series you'll be able to learn how to use it. The first thing you should probably do is crack open a browser and go to purebasic.com. Hit the download. Now, there is I just hit my desk. There is one quite big snag with PureBasic. I'm going to get it right out from the start. It's the only one there is. And that is that to get the full versions of PureBasic, you have to pay. I can't remember how much it is, but it's a decent amount. However, the only limit on the demo is the amount of lines that you can write in a program, and there are a lot of ways around that. But you get all the other features. So using the demo for this series, for most of your development actually, is perfectly fine. So if you want to hit the demo, this gives you version 5.51. I'm using version 5.11 because there's a long-term support. I think actually there's some more long-term support stuff around the 5.5 mark, but I just haven't upgraded yet. It's available for all the different types of OS, including Amiga OS, if anybody's still using that, but it's not been updated for quite a while. If you're on a Mac, there are some slight snags a long way down the line, but for simple stuff, for getting to know whether you want to use the language or not, it's perfectly fine. I think there's a lot of release notes that come with the Mac stuff and the Linux stuff as to how to get it all set up. But for Windows, it's just as simple as downloading a zip file, extracting it, and running. It's pretty simple. And then you'll get a nice editor that'll look something like this. The editor is quite a good one. It has all your standard features that you need. Some really handy ones like block commenting, and easily you can easily duplicate lines. So if I just type something like test line, if I can actually spell, and then you hit Control D, you get a duplicate line. That's because this is Scintilla based, which is a library that you can use in your programs. We'll get onto that. To start off PureBasic, where do you start? Well, if you've not got any programming experience coming into this, the best place would be just to learn the basics. So in programming, you have different types of things that you can do, and different ways of storing things, and different ways of calculating things. But a lot of the storing comes in either things called variables, or things called constants, or things called strings. variables are things that can change, they can vary, hence the term variable, and you can change them. Things called constants are constant. You set them once and that is it, they will be stored as that and you can't change them. And the things called strings are strings, just lots of letters and characters in a row. Normally there is some sort of quotation around them. In PureBasic it happens to be a double quote, which is nice and simple. How do you use variables? Well, in PureBasic, with it being a basic syntax, it's fairly simple. You just say whatever your variable name is. We'll say x for starters. Hit the equals, and then type your value, and that's it. So now we've got a variable there, and it will be set to the value of 12. It's pretty simple. Again, if you want to set a different thing, let's I don't know, let's think. Let's say you want something more than just one letter. You want a value variable where you can use the word value. Use the equals and then set it to what you want. This time we'll set it to, I don't know, it's random value that I've picked. For strings, it's a little bit different. You put your whatever you want your string to be called. Let's not use that. Let's just say text, but then you put a $sign after it, and that says this is going to be a string. And then you have your string. All pretty simple so far. Constants, that was the other thing. Constants start with a hash and then the name of it. So yes, we'll say const for constant. And then you can put a string in there if you want, or you can put a value in there, but whatever you set, it can't be changed then. It's a constant. So we'll just say constant, put in as a string. The other way you can do variables is by doing different types of variables. That's a little bit advanced for now, but you have things like integers, which are full numbers, floats, which are long decimal pointed numbers, quads and bytes and all that. There's quite a lot to get into on that. But the way you do it is normally you just do your variable name or whatever it is, followed by a dot, followed by the letter of the type. So you can have S for string, you can have I for integer, there's loads, I can't remember, L for long, there's loads. The handy thing is, if you forget any of this, just hit the F1 button. PureBasic comes with its full reference as a help built right in, and if you forget anything, it's there, and that's all you need. There are forums. The PureBasic forum it's pretty good for more obscure things. So if you get stuck in a project, then you can go ask. However, for basic things, you're probably going to get the answer of RTFM, which is read the blank manual, shall we say, which just means look it up in the help because it'll be there somewhere. If you don't want to use the links, you can just search for something. If we just search variable, will it come up with variables and types? There you go, and you have the help for all the different types you need, the different extensions you can put on the end, and how to assign different things, which is really handy. Now, along with assigning a value, you can also do like expressions and calculations within this. So if you know you have, let's pick two numbers, and you want to work them out, but let's say these are way off in some other part of your code and you can't see them, but you know you need the values of x and y, and you want to work them out and put them in a new variable, you just hit x plus y and it'll work. let's just show that and hope that it doesn't catch me up because of how simple this program is. The debug code just literally says give us the debug window with the value at the minute of z, and z should be equal to x plus y, which should come out at 43 if my maths is right. Hit your F5 to run, and oh, it did run. Okay, it took a minute there. And there's your debug window, and there's your z output being 43. So that's all good. You can use any mathematical thing you want there. Some of them are a little bit more obscure. So you could do, for example, your power if you wanted. But sometimes with weird mathematical signs, it either looks too weird for people to read. I know I personally don't like seeing lots of random symbols thrown in with letters. So you can use the power operator, which if you don't know how to use it, you just look down the bottom and you say, hey, we need a number. In this case, oh, that's quite a big calculation actually. Let's say 2. We need the exponent, which is the small number above it. Say 3, and again we'll put the debug back in. Hit F5, and we should get 8, yes, because 2 cubed is 8. It's very handy to have down at the bottom the down here you have the little quick help is what they call it. That was what I was looking for. And if you have any built-in operation and you don't know what it does, or you can't find out information on it, down at the bottom, if there's quick help available, then that's your first place you should be looking, because it'll tell you what it needs at the minute. So for squaring something, it just wants a value, just a number, in which case we can put z in again. So we've already set z to be equal to 2 to the power 3, and now we're saying square z again, but we've not assigned it to anything. We don't need to assign it to anything. That debug command that we had before, that debug command just wants something to output. It doesn't need a variable technically, and you can just put this whole command to be debugged. So if we hit F5, I forgot that square root, not square, my bad. But the square root of 8 is 2.828 blah 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 blah. My bad, I thought that was the square root. It says there, returns the square root of the specified number. It's because I've been writing my own maths library that I've forgotten the PureBasic ones. Great start for this teaching live stream. But anyway, I think the best way to get into it is just to get into it. What should we do? Let's start with the classic. When you're learning any language, the first thing you do is print some text to the screen. Normally the sentence "Hello world." So let's start. First of all, let's say we need text. Let's put it into a string. We'll call it "Hello world." We'll do HW for "Hello world" as a string, and we'll say "Hello world." And in fact, we'll do it the other way around. In fact, I'm going to do this the other way and just show you that you can use .s to assign it instead of the $sign. Now we want something to actually display it on. Instead of getting fancy and opening Windows or debugging, because we've already done debugging, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a console window, which funnily enough is open console, which will run the open console. Now you noticed when I was typing there, or maybe you didn't, that after 3 letters I get a list of things. If you have something there that you want, you can click it and press tab, or you can just keep typing. It's completely up to you. I press tab because that's what I'm used to. And then let's have a look at the quick help for Open Console. It has a title string. You can see that's a string, so it wants a string for the title of the console, which is like the title of this window is PureBasic 511 blah blah blah. But you'll see that actually that's in square brackets. Anything in square brackets down in the quick help means that it's optional. It means if you don't want to put it in, don't put it in. It'll just won't display a title, or it'll display a default title depending on what you're doing. So we could make a title if we wanted. Let's make that a constant because we're not going to change the title. And let's call this the Hello World Tester Program. I don't know, something like that. And then in there we can just give it the title. Okay, so that's going to open a console up, and then it'll quit because it's not actually doing anything. But in a console, you know how sometimes it's like press any key to continue. We can get it to pause like that by putting the input command in, which basically says wait for the user to input something, and it would normally then give you back whatever you've put in. But for now we're just going to use it as a holder, so that when we hit F5 it's just sat there, it's waiting for something to happen. What comes after input is nothing, so when we press enter after our input it crashes. What we want to do though is let's put that down at the bottom. What we want to do is say, hey, print this text, and the easiest thing to do is, if you want to try and do something, start typing in what you think the command might be, and eventually you'll probably get it. Or searching the help by pressing F1 and then searching. We need the print command. It says here print and then the string that you want to print it. Display whatever this string is in the console. That, if you just started using print without Open Console, would cause some errors. Because it says you need the console, so you need to open the console before it, which we've done. And then what's our string called? Our string is hw.s. So then that'll print, and then we get our input to wait. And there you go. For those who missed it the first time, to run everything, you can go through compiler and run, or compile and run. But I'm just hitting F5 just every time on the keyboard because it's much faster. Stream's gone back up to good health, that's good. Right, what else shall we do to start off with? Let's hit enter to close that for starters. Doing the console stuff is quite interesting for beginning stuff. Now if you hit F1 or over a command, I'll show you again, while you're in the middle of a command, if you press F1 it'll bring you to that exact page that you need. I'm just trying to look for anything fancy that we can do that's fairly simple. Let's look at the console index. So these are all the things to do with consoles. You can clear the console, you can change the console color. That's probably something we can do. Let's do that. So changing the console color, you need the console open, obviously. Start typing in console, and eventually console color will come up with the American spelling, which is very annoying. Again, look at the quick help down at the bottom. It wants a character color and then the background color. So the character color is, if we just comment this out using a semicolon, it'll comment the line out. If we take this, the characters are the H, the E, the L, L, or that sort of thing. And then the background is the background of the thing, the text. and also of the white space, which sounds really weird saying it on a console that's got black. But we want, what colour do we want? Well, let's just try 00. That's going to cause some fun, but let's do it. And sure enough, nothing displays, or it looks like nothing, because 00 is black on black. But you'll see the flashing cursor at the end to show you that actually something has printed out. Now, on the off chance that this is an error, you see this big red X. If you've ever got a crash in your program and you can't get out of it, hit that. That'll kill the debugger right away and you'll be back to where you were. So let's change our console colors. Let's start with 1. That's quite dark. I don't like that. Let's just go through. There is actually a table. I think I saw the table. Yeah. Consoles can only have 16 colors, which is why I'm doing 0 through 15. So these are all the different ones. So let's get a yellow on a blue background. So that's, yellow is 14, blue is 1. So for our characters, we want our characters to be yellow, which is 14. We want the background to be 1. Hit F5, and sure enough, we have that. Now to change the entire background of the console, will be hidden away somewhere in the help. I might need graphical console actually. Not closed, I want clear, that's the one. Maybe there isn't a way. I don't use console that much. I'm all about windowing at the minute. Anyway, I think we should get rid of that. Actually, let's leave those 2 lines on there to say that we've got it set. Because while doing console stuff is great, we want to do a window, and opening a window is just as easy as opening a console. You open window, and then down at the bottom, it looks a little bit more complex because there's lots going on here, but it's not. So the first things it wants is the window constant, which sounds complex again. It's not. It's just literally like an ID number. For most of the time, you'll have it set up in an enumeration, which basically just counts through all the values and puts them up one by one, which I will show you later. For now, we could just type in a number. So long as we don't type the same number in twice for a different window, that's perfectly fine as well. Most people would use 0 and do it that way, but PureBasic has a way that if you're not really that bothered about what numbers go where, but you don't want a crash to happen, you can use a PureBasic constant, which is called PB_any, and that will just fill in a random number that they've set. So we're going to use that because I haven't set enumeration up and I want to show it off. Next we need an X coordinate, which is the horizontal on the screen. So on your screen you have lots of little pixels that make up all the different colours and everything you see, starting at 0, 0, which is right up in this top corner, which we do want and we don't want. Sometimes you'll want that, sometimes you want it in the middle of the screen. Right now we want it middle-ish in the screen. I'm just going to pick 400. I don't actually know if that's right. The Y is how far down the screen you're going. Again, starting at 0 at the top, working all the way down. Again, I'm going to pick 400. So that means that the Windows top corner, I think this is right for you because I'm looking at my camera, I think this is right. The Windows top corner will be 400 pixels across and 400 pixels down from the top, somewhere in this region. Let's hope so. Put in a comma to say that we've finished that value. Next you want the inner width, which is the actual size of the inside of the window, which is all this bit. I'm gonna let's stick with 400. In a height, let's stick with 400. And then the title, again, wants a string. Most titles, in fact, I think all titles in PureBasic will be strings. And strings can contain numbers. So if you do want just a number as your title, then you can just put them in quotation marks to make a string. But we already have our title written out as a constant, so let's put the title in there. Now you see down at the bottom, it's now asking for flags, but they're in square brackets, which is optional. We don't need them, so let's just close the command like that. If we hit F5 at this point, did you guys see that nice quick flicker on the screen? The window's opening, but there's nothing to keep it open. So we need some sort of loop to keep the window open, and for now all we're going to do is the basic loop that we have in PureBasic, which is called a repeat loop, which is just simply repeat this bit of code that comes up next until something happens. What that is you can set, but let's type it in repeat. Let's go down a few lines until something. So that's going to say repeat anything between this until whatever actually comes true. In this case, for now, we're gonna make a new variable. We're gonna call it quit, and until quit equals 1, repeat all this. And we're gonna go back to the top of our code, and we're gonna say quit equals 0. Simple. However, if we just run that now, we can't actually do anything with the program. It's in this loop of doing nothing, and quit will never be 1 because we're not doing anything to it. So you're stuck in a loop, and Windows will eventually crash if you keep clicking on it. So let's kill the program using the red X, and we're back to where we were. So let's do something. Let's have it wait for a second. Let's have the whole program just pause for 1 second, and then we'll set quit equal to 1, and then it'll quit out. So the easiest and simplest way to stop your program for an amount of time is using a delay function. And down at the bottom you can see again it wants a time in milliseconds. So 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second, which is what we want. So let's type the number 1,000 in, and then close off your brackets. Nice and simple. Delay of 1 second. But we still want quit to be 1, because at the minute, if we just do this, all that's going to happen is it's going to hit the repeat loop, wait for a second, until quit equals 1. Well, quit's not 1 yet, so let's go back. Oh, wait for a second. Oh, wait for a second. You see where I'm going with this? So after a second, we're going to want quit equal to 1. And we can just set that in right there and hard code it. We don't need to wait on something else happening. We're just going to tell it quit is 1. And then we should get the window opening for 1 second, and then quit being 1, so it'll quit out. Let's see. There you go. Voila. The delay function comes in handy for timing things up later on in quite advanced stuff, or just messing about and debugging when you're first learning, just to see how things are progressing. without using any complex debugger or something that sounds a little bit scary. So now what do we want to do? Well, let's get interesting on this. Let's take this out, and let's take this out. We're back to where our window would never close, and the most obvious way for everybody to close a window is by hitting the red X. So if we could get our window to close by hitting the red X, then that's a step forward, right? This requires a thing called events handling, or event handling, which is not to do with gigs in comedy shows and working out who's double booked. This is to do with when an event happens on your computer, in this case a window event. We wait for that to happen and then do something when it does happen. In this case, what we look for is a close window event, and when the close window event happens, what are we going to do? Well, for us, we want quit to be equal to 1 in order to stop the loop and close the program down. So that's what we need to do. We need to find out when the close window event happens, then we'll set quit equal to 1. Hope that makes sense. So the first thing we need to do is look at window events, and we need to wait for window event. The command, very simply, wait window event, double click or press your tab button, open up the bracket and look down at the bottom. The only thing we can set in there is an optional timeout setting, which is if I haven't received an event in however many milliseconds, ignore it. We don't want a timeout for this, we don't really need it, but we need to do something with the result. So when the event actually has occurred, we need to store that information in a variable. I'm going to call that event, make it nice and simple. So when something happens, in this case we're looking for a closed window event. When any event happens, event will now be the word that we need to use. But if we look in the help wait window event, you'll see what sort of thing we're going to create, and there are lots of different events you can wait for. There's the gadgets, which we'll get to, there's the menu stuff, but then there's this one that we really want, which is event close window. Now we could just say, hey, repeat until the event is close window, and we could do that. But for this, I'm going to show you going through all the different cases and how you can handle different things, and then we'll set, for us, we'll set quit to 1. So pretty simply, what we need to do is the select thing, and the select, it's a little bit like, I'm trying to work out how to explain it. It's basically saying pick this thing. We don't need a bracket there. In our case, pick the event variable, and then depending on what the value of that is, do different things. So in our case, we want the constant pb underscore event underscore close window, because if the close window value changed every time, how would you ever know that that was the close window? You just you have to keep it in a constant, and PureBasic has tons of these constants, and if you just start typing out #pb for constant that PureBasic has, you get quite a long list of all the different things that's set up. Again, look in the help for what you want, because it'll probably be in there. But for all the events that we want, there is one in there. For us, we want to wait for the window event and set the result to event, and then select event. We want to say what is the value of this. Well, if the value is equal to whatever the constant is for close window, which is what we're looking for, then we want quit to equal 1. After that, we don't want to do anything else, so you don't need to say end case. It will just look for the next line, the next case that happens. So we'll just end the select because we don't need to do anything else. Now you may have noticed that here we're setting quit to 1 with the equal sign, but here we're evaluating, we're comparing quit and the number 1 and seeing if they're the same. Now in other languages you'll get either 2 or 3 equals in a row, but that gets a little bit complex for beginners who like, why is there 2 equals here, why is there 3 equals here, why is there only 1 equals here, whereas in PureBasic you just have 1 equals, simple as, it does the same thing. That might get a little bit confusing if you can't work out whether you're setting a variable or you're comparing a variable. However, most of the time you can probably tell that you're not going to be setting a variable on until, because in the English language, you like until something happens, then nothing's, you know, you're going to do another thing, which in this case is repeat this until this happens. You know, you're not going to be repeat this instruction until and then set a new instruction. That's what I like about the basics syntax here, is that it's all fairly normal English. You don't have lots of shortened, squiggly bracketed stuff, which makes it a lot easier to read and a lot easier to understand. That it's not like learning a foreign language, it's like learning a dialect of English, which is really good. Okay, wow, I've been streaming a long time. So let's test this. I think I've got everything in the right order. We have our little program, and you'll see it's not crashing now. When I clicked on it before, it started to crash. Because in our loop we're actually doing something this time. We are waiting for a window event. Well, I'm moving it around. That's an event. I'm clicking on things. That's an event. Clicking on the system menu. Windows handles that. We don't need to worry about that just yet. The event we're looking for is a closed window. Well, let's hit the red X and see. When we hit the X, event closed window should happen. Quit should become 1. And when quit is 1, we quit out of the loop. Let's hope this works. Hey, it works. Now that's all fine and dandy, having our own little window, but you'll see that my maths was quite a way off. I wanted this to be in sort of the center of the screen, and it's not, it's way down here. But you remember that thing that I said earlier in open window about flags? Oh, it doesn't like that. There we go. Open window has all these different values you can put into it, all the different parameters. The next one is flags, which I said was an optional value, and you can see we ran the window with no values in there, with no flags in there, sorry. And flags are just constants again. They're just constants that can happen. So let's hit PB, and then underscore. Well, this is a window that we're looking at, so let's type window and see what comes up. There's some window 3D stuff at the top. That's for 3D windows, or window 3Ds, which we'll look at later. This is all the normal stuff. The window underscore is the stuff we want. And you'll see there's different things. You can have borderless window, you can have an invisible window, different things in the top corner, different icons and stuff to click on, different buttons. But the one that we really like is this one. If we hit double click on that, you have window screen centered. which is really cool because when you put that in, it doesn't matter what you've put in your X and Y, it will center the window in the screen. And I can prove that as we can see it there. If we now change our X and our Y to 0 and 0, which if you remember I said at the start, 0, 0 is right up here in this corner, in the top left corner, so it should put it there, but our window screen center flag should move it back into the middle, and long and behold it does. So when you've got a screen centered, instead of setting your values here, you could again either use PB any or a different flag, which is PB. We can ignore this setting, so PB ignore, and oops, same again there, PB underscore ignore when I can type, because we don't need it. And if you've typed in, you may have noticed it there, if you type in a flag correctly, and then you click away or move your pointer away, if it capitalizes when we click off, then you've typed it in correct, and it's something that it understands, which is great. So if we press F5 again, see, it doesn't need the X and Y, so we ignore that. We centered it in the screen. Now you may have noticed that now we've set screen centered, something has disappeared in this top corner. Because we've set a flag to say center it in the screen, it's going to assume, Windows assumes, that you're going to tell it what else it needs. And you may be thinking, hey, let's just make a list of all the different flags that we want. But then you hit the comma and suddenly it's looking for a parent ID value. But that's not what you want. You want to keep entering the flags. So what you need to do is enter this pipe symbol, which in other languages you'll normally use a double pipe like that, which means or, which is a logical thing I will run through later on. But for now, just assume that we're going to leave it as this, just learn this, forget about the background behind it. And you want to look at what the other flag is that you can set. Well, you could set any of the window flags. So let's type in PB window again. And let's have a look down the ones and see what we want. Well, we could have system menu, we could have the size gadget, that's the thing in the corner, it changes size. We could have a maximize gadget and minimize gadget. We are going to go with, let's try a system menu. Let's see what that brings up. Double click that, hit F5, and sure enough we get the system menu back on the left and a close on the right. That's the default setting, is the system menu. So if you don't put anything in there, that's the one that's going to be called. But again, just to check that our event loop thing down here works, hit the X and we close it. I've been streaming for nearly 3/4 of an hour now. Wow. Three-quarters of an hour, and we've gone from potentially never doing any coding to having a window open that you can move around and close, that you control the close. That, I mean, that's pretty good, I think. What else can we do though? Well, as you'll probably be able to tell, most Windows have some sort of menu system. That's true. There may be things beforehand that you want to set up. There may be other loops that you want to set up. So let's knock 3 or 4 of these on the head at once. So you may notice off to the right of the screen there is this whole extra section which we haven't got anything in at the minute. It's a label for procedures, type of forms, one for a project, one for Explorer. We are going to go with, well, you can click form and, oh, you can't drag it anymore. Never mind. We're going to go with procedures anyway. At the minute, we don't have any procedures. There is not the word procedure in here at all, which is a little bit upsetting. So what's the first thing that we're going to do? Well, type procedure. And sure enough, it goes bold, which means it's a keyword. And procedure works by saying, hey, I want this procedure. What are you going to call it? Well, let's say we want to do something that runs before the loop. Before the program runs, we want to get everything ready. I call it init because there's a list of all these different things in PureBasic that you can initialize before your program runs. Sprite, sound, network, keyboard, things, you know, if you want to use the keyboard like in a more advanced way, then you need init keyboard. If you want to check where the mouse is, you need init mouse, so on and so on. But I just make a procedure called init, open bracket, close bracket, because that's what all procedures in PureBasic are, and then let's end it. So anything in between these lines will run when we run init. Now you'll see other procedures we've got running. Our open window, that's a procedure. Wait window event, open procedure. Anywhere you see the open close bracket is a procedure. Now at the minute we don't have any parameters, but PureBasic knows that it's a procedure, and down at the bottom you'll see that we have our own quick help. That it doesn't expect anything. It doesn't tell you what it does because it doesn't know, but it'll tell you it's a procedure, and if you forget what yours is, instead of going looking back through your code, it's down at the bottom. We don't need any parameters putting in here. We'll make it nice and simple procedure to start off with. And what do we want to do? Well, before we start doing things with our program, we need to open the window. So we could put open window in here. We could do that. I'm going to tap that just to how nice it is. We could move this stuff into our init procedure. However, then you'd get some small snags, because within procedures, within loops of code that are blocked off, especially like this, if we just put HW equals HW string is hello world, only the code in this block would actually be able to use it, because we have a thing called local and a thing called global variables. This is where it gets really potentially quite confusing if you've got a lot of things going on. But you see here, we just use quit in our loop. So if we set quit is a good example. If we put quit in here and set it to 0 without it being up there, so if we just move that down here, then this is not going to work. This is going to struggle because quit is now not defined globally. It's defined locally, which means only things in this init procedure area can actually get to it. Whereas if you want everything in your program to get to it, it needs to be global. Now, if we wanted to make it global and use it within the procedure init, we can tell PureBasic to make it an actual global variable by just typing global before the word. It's very simple. We don't need to assign the value to it there. We can just say global quit. It's a variable. We don't know its value, but we know we want something to use it. We can put in here. We can then put quit equals 0, and we've assigned a value to it. But only the first time when we actually declare the variable, when we actually say, hey, we need to use this word quit. It's going to store something. We'll call it a global variable, so things can use it within procedures or without a procedure, just in the generic program. And that will now work, which is great. What else do we want setting? Again, we could do the same thing with hello world and the title. In fact, we're going to have to make. I think constants might actually be naturally global, because I I haven't really thought about that. I've never really put global before a constant before, and it's worked perfectly fine. But for argument's sake, let's clear these things up for niceties. Let's put this in here. Let's change the .s to a $sign just to make it nice. And in the globals, we can put a list of things. Now we could, if you hit Control D, we could double up and put in the HW dollar as the string name, and we could do that, or we can just put comma and then declare that, because we want two variables. We want one called quit, one that's a string for hello world, and then we can define it within the init program. That's all nice and dandy, that's fine. Apart from the fact that now, how do we get this code to run? We have everything set up. We have our loop, our main repeating loop, but we need something to run. I mean, we have the thing to run, we just need to run it. So what I tend to do is to get the initializing and starting and everything set up, is I set everything up, and then right before the repeat loop, I call our little procedure. And that'll go through and set everything up as needed when we call this, which is init. Init. Init for initialize. And that should work, he says tentatively, because what the program will do is the first line it will set up and declare these variables, one called quit, one is a string, and then it'll hit the init. It'll skip press procedure because it's just a procedure. We could move that further down, which I'll show you in a minute why we do that. It's going to hit the init, it's going to run the procedure called init, it's going to go through all these commands and then come back to this point, nothing on line 19, and then it's going to hit the repeat loop. Hey, we have a working thing. Now, let's cut this and put this down at the bottom. Let's say you want all procedures out of the way. This is how I like to code, and when you're getting huge advanced programs, you want things separated off in different files and out of the way potentially. If we run this now, we get an error which says line 4, the init procedure is not a function, an array, list map, or a macro. Basically says, I don't know what to do with this because you've not told me what this init is. Which is true, because before this line it hasn't got to this point, so it doesn't know what init actually is. So underneath global, while we also have global variables, we can have this idea of maybe a global procedure. It's not really a global procedure as such. It's basically just saying, hey, we have this procedure, we're not going to tell you what's in it right now, but we have it ready to run, and we use the word declare for this, and then I have caps lock, and then the name of the procedure. A bit like procedure init down here, instead of putting procedure, put declare, and that will now be like the compiler, the program will run through, but it'll pick up this later on. Otherwise, everything would have to be before we call it. I'm hoping this makes sense. That before we had procedure in it, before we called the actual procedure. Now we've got it afterwards, so when it hit this init, it failed, there was an error. But now we've declared that we have this procedure. It's going to go through the program once and pick up on this and then look at running it. So when we hit F5, it now works, which is great because we don't want lots of procedures in the middle of your program. You might want it in a different file, and including in, you might want it just down at the bottom out of the way, which is what we're going to do for now. I'm trying to think very quickly what else we could do just to get you started. The next bit of this really is doing menus and gadgets, and let's just have a quick look at the time. Yeah, I've been going for nearly an hour. And the menus are these things at the top. I'm sure you know what a menu is. That sounded really condescending. And gadgets are these things. These are all button gadgets. And we have a gadget here, which is an editor, and we've got a panel. We've got another panel here. Lists here. There's lots of different gadgets which make up a window. So that'll be the next thing. One thing just to note, which I did just click on, which is the whole reason that I brought procedures into this, is on this right hand side we now have something in our procedures list, and if your mouse is off to the side and you click in it, or you can double click, it will bring you to where you've where you've defined your procedure. So if this was way off down the beaten track, way out of the way, and you were working on something up here and you were like, oh man, so I call my procedure here, but I need to change it. I don't want to go looking through all my code. Double click, or just single click even, and it'll bring you down to the point where you need it. Pretty simple. We're going to save this now. Nice and simple. Let's put it in dev. Let's create a new folder. I'll sort this out later. Let's call it, I'm just going to call it coding channel. I will know what that means and change it. PureBasic. All the PureBasic stuff is either a .pb file or .pbi file. I'm going to save it as .pb. You don't have to save it as .pb. If you just type your name in and press enter, it'll put the .pb on the end. It's perfectly fine, and you'll see there we now have the name of the file at the top and bottom. But that should be it for today. Coming up to the hour mark. Hopefully this gives you an insight into how simple things can be. You know, even quite, I would say, relatively complex. Opening a window is not relatively complex, but in C++ and C, and I know a lot of people that have tried to learn that language and just want to open a window to see if they can enjoy coding and get the grips of it. And opening a window in C++ has been a bit too complex for them, or too scary. There's lots of squiggly brackets and all sorts of weird things that you need to type in. So I'm hoping that PureBasic is more for you guys. Hopefully the experienced people here can also see the power of having quite a simple language built up of lots of little instructions going and stuff. And yeah, hopefully this has all made sense. I will be live streaming again fairly soon with an update to this. So yeah, check out my other videos, check out other live streams that I do in the future. If you have an idea for a project that you want me to do a video on, it doesn't have to be an update in coding in PureBasic. It could be a different language. It could be an actual idea, like let's make a calculator or a web browser or something. I don't know. Then I'll look into doing that. If you want a tutorial on something, I've already got a tutorial on virtual machines and stuff. If you want different tutorials doing on things, let me know. Yeah, just what do you guys want to see out of this channel? That's what this is for you. This is not for me to teach. It's not for me teaching you specific things like a curriculum. This is just to try and get people more involved in code, because I've seen so many people in my life be scared away from computers because someone's told them something complex once. And while I may not be the best person to describe this sort of things for you, I'm hoping that, you know, I'm pretty good at coming up with different ways to describe things. I've been told that I can come up with quite a lot of different ways of describing complex things for different people. So I'm hoping I can do that. You just gotta let me know. Let me know if this was too wordy, too weird. I'm waffling on right now. Is this too much? Let me know. Give us some feedback, and hopefully I'll see you guys later on. That's it. If you want to go ahead and continue noodling with PureBasic, that's perfectly fine. I'd be interested to see what you guys come up with, or if you've got any questions, let us know. And maybe let me know if you're a beginner, if you're advanced, because that'd be interesting to see who watches this. Well, thank you very much, and I will see you soon. Bye. Let's hit stop.